If everyone could please stand for the posting of the colors. At this time, I'd like to introduce retired fighter Mike Arruda to introduce the striking of the 4-5s. Try and keep them closer.
Striking of the 4-5s. The fire service is rich with ceremony, customs, and traditions. Our custom of rendering final honors has its origin in the fire department of the city of New York, where many years ago, long before the advent of radios and pagers, fire alarms and daily announcements were displaced from central headquarters and outlying firehouses by a system of bells and telegraphs. Each different type of alarm or announcement would have its own number and series of bell strikes. When a firefighter died in the line of duty, or when some important official or personage died, headquarters would transmit 5 bell strikes, repeated in 4 series, with a slight pause between each series, followed by the announcement. This was done as long ago as 1865 in the New York City Fire Department to inform the rank and file of the death of Abraham Lincoln. The custom has continued to present day, and this form of rendering final honors to departed comrades is known as the fire service as striking of the 4-5s. Strike the 4-5s, strike the 4-5s.
At this time, please remain standing for the national anthem, followed by the invocation by Father Mike Racine.
Good morning. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
As we gather this morning to reflect on this 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 attacks on our country, we recall that beautiful morning that turned tragic and deadly and painful in such a short time. It's still a reminder today of that pain and sorrow, the words that we echo so often that we will hear today: we never forget. We remember the heroes of that day, our firefighters, our first responders, who demonstrated without fear or trembling the act of courage during crisis. We remember the innocents who perished, friends and neighbors, the thousands whose names are read throughout our country today. We remember Father Michael Judge, the chaplain of the New York City Fire Department, the first certified fatality. 22 years, we remember. We come to comfort, to reflect, and to always be that people of hope. During this day, and the days that followed, we continue to pray for peace, to be beacons of light, just as the rays of light that will shine in New York tonight. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our country and our common values of freedom, justice, and peace. Inspire our leaders of cities and our nations to react wisely, to always pursue, to enact that peace by word and example. Bestow upon all of us today and every day your blessings, that we will live to see swords be converted into plowshares and nations not learn from war anymore. Continue to bless our country. Continue to bless our firefighters, our EMTs, our police, our armed forces, and grant them safety each day. Amen.
Please be seated. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today on this slightly wet Monday morning as we remember those events 22 years ago. I would like to thank and welcome all of our first responders in attendance, all of our active duty, retired, our veterans, all our military service members, our Gold Star family members, as well as our local representatives who have been with us here today, including Senator Mike Rodrigues, Mayor Paul Coogan, Representatives Fiola, who could not be with us today, but Representative Sylvia, who is, Representative Schmidt as well. And thank you to all who worked so hard to keep the memory of those we lost alive and strong even 22 years later. Those 22 years ago this morning, the first major attack by a foreign entity since December 7th, 1941, was initiated against multiple targets on U.S. soil. By early afternoon, both towers of the World Trade Center were destroyed, the Pentagon was damaged and on fire, and the wreckage of a hijacked airplane was smoldering in a Pennsylvania field. All told, nearly 3,000 people had lost their lives. The nation watched as images poured in from New York, Arlington, Virginia, Shanksville, Pennsylvania. We were a nation unified in horror, in anger, and in grief. In the days that followed, as we often see with tragedies great or small, makeshift memorials began to appear. They took many forms, from pictures of missing loved ones to flowers, candles, stuffed animals, mementos, cards, messages of support and grief. People gathered across the country to mourn, to pray, and to remember those whose lives had been cut short. William Gladstone once said, "Show me the manner in which a nation or community cares for its dead, and I will measure with mathematical exactness the tender sympathies of its people, their respect for the laws of the land, and their loyalty to high ideals." We as a nation recognize the need to create permanent memorials to those who died during the September 11th terrorist attacks, to recognize first responders who ran into the burning towers to rescue those inside despite the danger to themselves. The memorials that have been erected across the country, including the one that stands here today, serve as a place for us as a nation to grieve and to remember those that we have lost. But they also serve as a way for us to teach new generations about the horrors of the attacks and the strength, the sacrifices, and the core values that have defined us as a people in their wake. Today, we gather here to do that, to remember those we lost, to recognize the bravery and heroism of those first responders who heeded the call, and to remember those first responders who have suffered long-lasting health effects from the exposure to the toxic dust and fumes. As we look back on that day 22 years ago, despite the changes home and abroad, our memories have not faded. We owe it to everyone lost, to everyone who responded to the call that day and every day after, and to our future generations to never forget. The memorials and ceremonies like this one ensure we never do. At this time, I would like to introduce Mayor Paul Coogan.
First of all, on a very humbling day like 9/11, I want to thank everybody that... Hello? Can you hear me now? Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming out in this rain to honor those people we lost on 9/11, particularly our public safety operation, whether it's police, fire, EMS, and I particularly want to thank the kids from Greater New Bedford Vocational who came over today to join us, because they are our next generation of public servants, and they're going to help us for generations to come. Today, as a community, we gather to remember and honor those lives lost on 9/11. On this tragic day in history, our nation's experienced a catastrophe that forever changed our lives and tested our resilience. As we pay respects today, we must remember that 9/11 serves as a reminder to our nation that acts of terror can have profound impact on communities. It is also important to remember that even in the wake of tragedy, we all joined in unity, resilience, and strength. In the face of ongoing challenges, we will continue to remember that we are much stronger when we all work together. Let us honor the memory of those we lost on 9/11 by never forgetting the sacrifices and hardships endured that day and still follow years later. Through remembrance, we are reminded of the determination of the Americans and our ability to come together. Thank you very much.
Next, I would like to introduce Senator Michael Rodrigues.
Thank you. Good morning. Can you hear me? Good morning. It's really a pleasure and honor to be here today as we gather every year, and I am joined by my colleagues in the Greater Fall River Legislative Delegation, Representative Paul Schmidt, Representative Alan Sylvia, Tyra from Representative Fiola's office, and we're here because we shall never forget either. I think back, it's hard to believe it's been 22 years because I, like all of you and like millions of Americans, remember exactly where we were and what we were doing when we first received the news of the tragedy that was happening in New York City and throughout the United States. And I shall never forget, like many of you and the millions of Americans, as we sat speechless in front of our television sets for hours as we watched the brave men and women of our first responders, the police, the fire, the emergency rescue personnel, running into danger while tens of thousands of people were running away from danger. And we will never forget as we witnessed those towers collapsing and collecting with it the lives and the bodies of so many brave men and women from the United States. We are here and we shall always be here every year because we shall never forget. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to introduce Fire Chief Roger St. Martin.
Good morning. Good morning, Gold Star families, Mayor Coogan, Cantor Wahlberg, Chaplain Racine, Senator Rodrigues, Representative Fiola, Schmidt, Sylvia, other elected officials, first responders, ladies and gentlemen. I will say this in beginning, our legislative delegation are champions of public safety. For that, I thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on such a solemn occasion, the 22nd anniversary of September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks. Those of us who are alive during these horrific events will never forget where we were when we received the news this day 22 years ago. We as Americans were forever changed that day. The acts of these few radical extremists did not polarize the American people as intended, but actually served to unite the country and their resolve to overcome. On this day 22 years ago, nearly 3,000 people lost their lives during the attacks at the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and aboard United Airlines Flight 93. At 08:46 a.m. Eastern Time, American Flight 11 traveling from Boston to Los Angeles hit the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. At 09:03 a.m. Eastern Time, United Airlines Flight 175 traveling from Boston to Los Angeles hit the South Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. At 09:37 a.m. Eastern Time, American Airlines Flight 77 traveling from Dulles, Virginia to Los Angeles hit the Pentagon building in Washington. And at 10:08 a.m. Eastern Time, United Airlines Flight 93 traveling from Newark, New Jersey to San Francisco crashed in a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Let's roll. That was a rally cry of Todd Beamer in attempting to thwart the hijacking of Flight 93. It was echoed from coast to coast and across the globe. Immediately, thousands of first responders, emergency management personnel, military, civilians, rushed to the aid of those in need. Of the 2,977 victims killed in the attacks, there were 343 firefighters, 10 emergency medical technicians and paramedics, along with 65 law enforcement personnel. 29 military and government workers lost their lives saving others. Hundreds more first responders suffered injuries in this effort, and still today, many from across the nation suffer ill health effects due to their labors in effecting rescues that day and the days following. This day, 22 years ago, the world witnessed the worst and the best of humanity. Following the events of this day, Americans rallied to defend our great nation from terrorism. Many of you here today put your lives on hold to that end. Thank you. Thank you very much. Many of you came together to support the victims of September 11th, the military members who were deployed, their families and others in their time of need. We as Americans banded together to ensure national security, economic stability, and to maintain our way of life. We look to help each other heal our wounds and overcome. There is strength in unity. The Bible notes a house divided can never stand. Today we take a moment to pause our busy lives and remember those who lost their lives 22 years ago today. Let us never forget the innocent souls lost that day. Let us never forget the courage and commitment of emergency responders who faced the dangers to save others' lives and lost theirs. Let us never forget the men and women who lost their lives following these horrific events, combating terrorism. Let's roll. It's inscribed on an aluminum bracelet handed to my daughter by my Command Master Chief while I was deployed to Iraq. He told her it was made with metal from the crash of Flight 93 in Shanksville, PA. She was 7 years old on September 11, 2001. And watched these horrific events unfold in real time at her elementary school. She was 9 years old when she received that bracelet and has worn it every day. She wears that bracelet so she shall never forget what happened that day and the years following. It's my daughter right there. In conclusion, I will share an anonymous quote from the internet. Yesterday, 22 years ago, 246 people went to sleep in preparation for their morning flights. 2,606 people went to sleep in preparation for work in the morning. 343 firefighters went to sleep in preparation for their morning shift. 60 patrol officers went to sleep in preparation for their morning patrol. 8 paramedics went to sleep in preparation for their morning shifts. None of them saw past 10 a.m. that day. In one single moment, life may be forever changed. You, as you live your life and enjoy the breaths you take today and tonight, before you go to sleep, in preparation for your life tomorrow, kiss the ones you love, snuggle a little tighter, and never take 1 second of your life for granted. Thank you all for taking the time out of your day to remember, and please never forget. Thank you.
Next, I would like to introduce our speaker today, Lieutenant Colonel Benjamin Fiala. Fiala was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He was raised as a Colorado native and graduated from the University of Colorado in 2000. He played professional golf and worked in as a accountant before joining the Marine Corps as a second lieutenant in 2003. Lieutenant Colonel Fiala served in Iraq with the VMFA AW121 as well as in the Pacific. He served with the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, 5th Marine Regiment, Marine Air Group 31, and Headquarters U.S. Marine Corps Aviation. He also commanded the Headquarters Squadron Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort from 2021 to 2023. He most recently moved his family here to Newport to attend the United States Naval War College this July.
Thank you. Thank you to the Battleship Cove Historic Society for setting this up. Thank you to our elected officials for joining us today. Thank you to our first responders, our military guests, our veterans. And when I look at the, I have to say, when I look at the Vietnam veteran bus over there, I have to take the opportunity to say thank you for your service as well. Because for the past 21 years, I've been thanked each and every day, and you didn't receive the same. So thank you for your service. Thank you. On behalf of the Naval War College, it is an honor to represent both the United States Navy and the United States Marine Corps today at this solemn occasion. Thank you to the bagpipes for providing the proper mood and setting the tone for this event. To our first responders, my fellow members of the military, and the patriotic citizens of this great nation, thank you for joining us this morning for this solemn remembrance and taking the time out of your day to honor those that we lost on that fateful day and in the subsequent battles that would ensue in our national response. For 247 years, our nation has endured triumph and tragedy, emerging on each occasion better and more perfect, just as our founding fathers had envisioned. American exceptionalism is the envy of the world and its citizens. We flourish with freedom and the pursuit of happiness, ensured by our military and our first responders. Our nation has challenges, there's no doubt about that, and we respond to them accordingly each and every day. No more so than 22 years ago, when true evil struck our shores in those unprecedented attacks. It had a profound impact on my life, as I know it did yours. I joined in August of 2001, and I would join a long list of responders who took the time, took the oath, and took our flag forward in a response to those unprecedented attacks. 22 years later, I stand before you, Lieutenant Colonel, proud father and a proud American. Proud American for what we stand for and what we show the world in our response to their threats. That day changed our lives. As these terrorist attacks fade into memory, I call upon each of us to be better neighbors, to be better citizens. And for you young, aspiring individuals that want to join, I encourage you to take up military service. We need you. We need good people to continue service to this great nation. For the list of enemies continue, and America's resolve must be ever present. This will ensure that the Declaration of Independence that was signed in 1776 lives on, and that we can continue in the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you, and God bless these United States.
Next, please stand for the laying of the wreath, which will be followed by a 21-gun salute and the playing of taps. At this time, I'd like to introduce Cantor Richard Wahlberg for the benediction. Doves after.
You may be seated. The problem with being the last one to speak is that everyone else has said what I was going to say. However, I'm going to address mainly the class that came here. If you were asked next month what you remember about this ceremony, I would guarantee that you're going to say that 21-gun salute. That was the loud, piercing thing you're going to remember. But I also want to say that you're going to hear your parents and people say we're living in the worst times, terrible times. Let me tell you, all times have been terrible. Every part of history has been tough, and the human condition is such that we're living now in very tough time. We have disasters every day all over. Hawaii, an earthquake where 2,000 people have perished. The human condition is tough. However, there is a bright side. But let me ask you, adults, where were you 22 years ago? What a tragically defining moment in history. There are very few here who don't remember where they were between 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. on September 11th, 2001. Though you weren't on United Airlines Flight 175 out of Boston, and though you weren't on American Airlines Flight 77 that crashed into the Pentagon, and though most likely you weren't in the World Trade Center, you nevertheless will always feel a very strong connection to those poor, unfortunate souls. 22 years and 1 day ago, September 10th, we felt secure, but our myth of security was shattered exactly 22 years ago. If we don't fight terrorism anywhere, we will find terrorism everywhere. I believe in the sun, even when it is not shining. I believe in love, even when feeling it not. I believe in good, even when evil is all around. I believe in peace, even when terrorism abounds. I believe in God, even when God is silent. May the blessings of peace unfold and infuse, embrace and intertwine our beloved country and all the world. Eternal wellspring of peace, may we, as well as the enemy, be drenched with the longing for peace, that we all may give ourselves over to peace until the earth overflows with peace as living waters overflow the seas. May the blessing of peace unfold and infuse, embrace and intertwine our beloved country and all the world. And may we realize that the price of freedom is very high, and that if we don't fight terrorism anywhere, we will find it everywhere. Our fervent prayer is to see the prophecy fulfilled. Nation shall not lift up sword nation against nation, neither shall man learn more anymore. For all men, both great and small, shall know the Lord. Amen.
At this time, I would like to introduce Bill and Paula Damaris for the releasing of the white doves. Thank you. This concludes our ceremony. I will now ask the honor guard to retire the colors.